morning. It's Thursday, October 22nd, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, attacks in Jerusalem and the West Bank continue as the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meets with the German Chancellor in Berlin as Netanyahu attempts to clarify a large portion of his claims regarding the Jerusalem Grand Mufti's role in the Holocaust. The White House condemns Russia for their, quote, red carpet welcoming of Syria's President Bashar Assad, who met with the Russian president in Moscow, the first time that Assad has left Syria since 2011. And later on the show, we're going to go on an underwater journey to the wreck of the infamous Italian submarine, which was the terror of British ships during World War II. Good morning, I'm Yael Wisner-Levy, and we begin today in Jerusalem, the scene of the latest attack, when a man suspected of trying to grab two soldiers' weapons was shot dead. Police are still working to understand the identity and motive of the man, but the attack came amid another day of violence yesterday that left at least 6 people wounded. I want to get now the latest from the Israel police spokesperson, Mickey Rosenfeld. Good morning, Mickey. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
What are the latest details that you can give us about last night's attack close to midnight, actually?
The central bus station in Jerusalem is that there was a man, a suspicious man in terms of his behavior, that was approached by 2 soldiers. The 2 soldiers, as part of the regular standard procedures, asked to see the identification of the man. Then there was some type of brawl and fight which took place at the scene, where at the height of that incident, the soldier claimed that the man had tried to get hold of his weapon. As a result of that, directly they thought he was a terrorist, and unfortunately, based on the misidentification there, he was shot, and in fact, he passed away from his wounds at the scene. An Israeli police investigation is taking place as to that incident, how it developed, and exactly why there was miscommunication and misidentification there.
And yesterday we saw the majority of attacks in the West Bank. Is the Israel police preparing for more attacks in that region as opposed to Jerusalem, as we've seen many more attacks in that area?
Well, in general, there's heightened security that is taking place all across the country. What we've seen over the last 48 hours is there's been a change in the wave of attacks. There is definitely an increase in attacks in the Hebron and Judea and Samaria area. Our emphasis is at the moment in Judea and Samaria, and of course Jerusalem, with full coordination being made by the Israeli National Police and the IDF.
And we do have some reports coming in from Bet Shemesh, reports of shooting. Do you know anything about that?
No, don't have reports yet of any shooting in Bet Shemesh.
Okay.
That's what we have until now in general.
Mickey Rosenfeld, thank you for joining us. The Israeli Prime Minister, meanwhile, is on an official visit to Germany, arriving just after he had stirred controversy by claiming that a Palestinian leader, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, gave Adolf Hitler the idea of exterminating the Jews. This led to widespread criticism and to the German Chancellor Angela Merkel emphasizing her nation's inherent responsibility for the Holocaust. We're joined now in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Good morning, Tal.
Good morning.
And also with us is I-24 News contributor Ami Kaufman. Good morning, Ami. Let's all take a look at this next report that recaps the latest from Netanyahu's meeting with Merkel.
With no end in sight to weeks of Israeli-Palestinian violence, Israel's Prime Minister arrived in Germany to meet Chancellor Angela Merkel ahead of talks with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. While the scheduled meetings are aimed to discuss the recent wave of violence and how to restore calm to the region, Netanyahu's visit follows his controversial remarks, saying a Palestinian leader persuaded the Nazis to carry out the Holocaust. Netanyahu's recent statements stirred outrage and criticism, both in Israel and abroad. Chancellor Merkel and Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed the issue.
We don't see any reason to change our view of history, particularly on this issue. We abide by our responsibility as Germany for the Shoah, for the Holocaust.
Hitler is responsible for the Holocaust. No one should deny that. And I think that it's very clear that the responsibility of Hitler and the Nazis for the extermination of 6 million Jews is clear to all fair-minded people. I think no one should deny another important testimony about the Mufti of Jerusalem, that he told the Nazis to prevent the fleeing of Jews from Europe, and that he supported the final solution.
Following weeks of almost daily terror attacks on Israeli civilians and soldiers and enhanced security measures against the Palestinian population in Israel and the West Bank, political efforts are made in a bid to control the situation. The expected Kerry meetings highlight several days of intense diplomatic efforts to end the violence. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon made a surprise visit to the region to urge calm and held separate meetings with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Palestinian President Abbas. Kerry will meet Prime Minister Netanyahu on Thursday in Germany before heading to the region for talks with President Abbas and Jordanian King Abdullah.
So, Tal, of course, beyond the content of Netanyahu's speech to the World Jewish Congress, the timing was unfortunate as well, to say the least.
Yeah, it was quite ironic. Just a day before Netanyahu flies out to Germany for a meeting with Merkel, the first meeting since the Iran deal was signed, and this did create a huge diplomatic embarrassment. Netanyahu didn't backtrack from his comments. He tried to clarify them, but the significance of his comments will remain, and instead of really discussing the crucial issues, the 50 years of diplomatic relations between Israel and Germany, or other issues, this was the main topic of the press conference, and was basically will be dominating his whole trip. Today, he also has a meeting with Secretary of State John Kerry. That is, of course, practically a much more important meeting at this point, and that could be overshadowed by the attack yesterday in Jerusalem, in which a Jewish citizen was killed by mistake. This could go down as one of the more problematic trips Netanyahu has had abroad in a while.
But also back here at home, he's not alone in his criticism towards him politically, of course. Both from the opposition parties and also, I think, maybe in his own government, people are uneasy, or are they trying to explain his comments yesterday? Is it splitting the political spectrum?
We need to distinguish.
Right.
His comments were created a wide public uproar. It didn't really have much to do with right and left to begin with, but then, in the current rhetoric in the Israeli public arena, after a while, the right-wing supporters of Netanyahu start to say that all the accusations against him are coming from the left, and they start to defend him. So we'll still have to see how that plays out amongst his own base. But Netanyahu has another problem. Today, he will be meeting Secretary Kerry, and Kerry wants him to make some moves. He wants to make some concessions. Kerry's goal is to create an understanding, to reiterate a previous understanding that he made with between Israel and Jordan back in November over the Temple Mount. Those understandings, according to the Jordanians and the Palestinians, are not clarified. Kerry wants to clarify them. That might require Netanyahu to make some concessions, and he does not have any political capital to do so. Yesterday, one of his right-wing ministers, Uri Ariel, wrote a letter threatening him, basically, that if he makes any change to Temple Mount status quo, even if he limits Jewish visits to status quo, he will be quitting the government. So Netanyahu is in a very, very problematic situation, and there's a good chance that nothing tangible will come out of his meeting today with Kerry.
And of course, Kerry does need to meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas over the weekend, and is wanting to come to that meeting holding something. I want to go now to Tor Schroeder, the Berlin Morgen Post correspondent there in Berlin. Thank you for joining us, and good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Hi.
Of course, as we heard here from Tal, a public uproar in Israel, also from politicians, mostly from the opposition. How has the German press been covering Netanyahu's comments?
Well, diplomatically, I would say it didn't receive quite as much attention as it did in Israel. But maybe let me focus on what I saw yesterday when coming on the trip with Netanyahu. You could clearly see how this overshadowed the whole trip. When he arrived to Ben Gurion, he was checking a manuscript before he went out to address the press, and then he gave the testimony of Eichmann's deputy in order to back his claim. So he didn't really step back. And then on the trip, on the flight, and it was his 66th birthday yesterday, there was chocolate and vanilla cake served, but there was no real party atmosphere at no part of the trip.
Yeah, of course he did, as we say, try to clarify. Is the German press covering it, though, extensively? Of course, Merkel was forced, of course, to clarify Germany's responsibility.
The German press is not as much interested as the Israeli one is. The questions to that issue came from the Israeli press. The German press was interested on other things. I think that the most, almost like a tragic moment was at the press conference when Merkel had to clarify that no, it was us, it was Germany that that is taking all the blame for the Holocaust, and this is 50 years after the start of diplomatic relations, 70 years after the end of the war. This is really such common ground in Germany, so it doesn't need to be clarified as much.
Yeah, of course. No one thought that 50 years of Israeli-German relations would be marked by these comments at all. Tori Schroeder from the Berlin Morgenpost newspaper, thank you for joining us. Merav Sevir, our I-24 news correspondent, you're standing by in Gush Etzion this morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Of course, the area where many attacks have occurred in the past few days. Just yesterday, 5 soldiers injured.
Yeah, and you are correct. Over the last 3 days, there were 10 attacks in this area. But before we get to more about yesterday's attack, where you said 5 soldiers were injured, I do want to mention initial reports from Bet Shemesh, just several kilometers away. We are hearing that there was a stabbing attack. 2 attackers were neutralized. We're waiting to get more information about the injured in this incident. We will update you about that as soon as we get more information about it. Now, as you mentioned, just yesterday evening, another attack here where 5 soldiers were injured. What had happened is that there were stones thrown at their cars. They exited the vehicle and another car hit them, a vehicular incident. 5 of them injured, 2 of them moderately to seriously, 3 of them lightly. Now, Yael, we do want to make sure everybody understands these 2 were not connected. Stones were thrown at their cars, prompting them to exit their vehicles, and then somebody seized the opportunity and hit them with their car. As far as we understand, this was not planned between the 2 different groups. Now, if you can see over my left shoulder, there is a cement block, and I don't know if you can tell how far away it actually is from the bus stop. Now, the cement blocks are put there in order to protect civilians who are standing at these bus stops waiting for the buses, but there are good at least 3 or 4 meters between the cement blocks and the bus stop itself, prompting questions about whether or not that can actually halt a vehicular attack if it were to happen here. But as you can see, also security forces standing by in case anything does happen. If there is an incident, as we've heard over the last several weeks, they are there to neutralize the situation. Again, Yael, this incident in Bet Shemesh is several kilometers away. We're waiting to hear more information from this incident this morning. 2 attackers already neutralized, and we're waiting to get more information about the injured, and we will update you as soon as we get that.
Merav Sevil there in Gush Etzion, thank you. And of course, you will be updating us throughout today. Tal, when you do look at the fiasco, it can almost definitely be called from the Netanyahu rhetoric. How long is this going to be? This is a 24-hour blitz of press, and then we'll move on to other subjects as Kerry? Or will people be remembering this? And we talked about Jewish organizations and so forth that are most likely uneasy this morning, trying to maybe explain the Israeli leader's comments.
Well, I have to point out that there has been an embarrassment in Jewish organizations. We're not hearing very strong responses. If the words that came out of Netanyahu's mouth Tuesday would have come out of any other foreign leader in the world, he would be accused of Holocaust denial, because the problem with what Netanyahu said is not what he said about the Mufti, it's what he said about Hitler. He basically said that Hitler did not have did not intend to kill Jews in 41, and that is not right. By 41, the final solution was already underway. Jews, were already exterminated all around Europe. Just Babi Yar happened 2 months before this meeting between the Mufti and Hitler. So I do think that this will have a long-term effect on how people treat Netanyahu and how the international community treats Netanyahu, because basically what these comments expose is how deep is his ideology about the Palestinians and about the Palestinians wanting to kill and expel the Jewish people, and how basically this is not a matter of politics, occupation, or settlements, but this is a totally different issue. And I think when we saw last week, we saw Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas also give a very peculiar speech in which he accused Israel of executing the 13-year-old while in fact he was really alive. diplomats all around the world were scratching their heads saying, what's going on with him? And I do believe that yesterday that was the same response that Netanyahu generated in capitals around the world.
And do you have an answer of what's going on with him, or do you think this is, meaning, is this a thought-out strategy, or is this kind of off-the-cusp diplomacy?
I don't think it's a thought-out strategy. I think one of the problems is, and this is something that comes up when you speak to Israeli political analysts, Netanyahu is not surrounded by the very high top-level advisors. This is something that should be caught on the way. Even if Netanyahu wrote it or someone else, a speechwriter, wrote it, this was something that should have that someone should have noticed before it was given. But as we see, Netanyahu is not regretting his comments. He's clarifying them, but he is not regretting them. He keeps on saying it. He keeps on saying there are many testimonies about the Mufti's involvement in the final solution, while there is only one historically. So I think that Netanyahu is hoping that this will fade out by another event, by other events, and that does quickly dissolve from the public agenda.
Tal Shalev, thank you for joining us. And we're going to say now good morning to Ami Kaufman, who joined us daily to discuss the news we've missed while scanning the headlines, or the ones deemed worthy enough to print. And this time I'm going to not only go print, also on the internet. This broke the internet. This
broke the internet, totally. I mean, the internet went wild with it. It was one of the most, I think, fun days that the internet had, I think, probably since the bomb cartoon at the UN with Netanyahu. But first, let's take a look at some headlines that I want to show you, how it was kind of covered here in Israel and abroad. Let's take a first look at the Jerusalem Post. It's a headline that kind of looks like, it's so bizarre, you can't actually believe it. After Netanyahu comments, Germany says responsibility for Holocaust is very much our own. It's such a bizarre how you can't even believe that it's happening.
Yeah,
It looks like it's out of a satire site.
I was uneasy. Even I was uneasy right now, asking our German correspondent there. Did Merkel have to clarify that for 50 years of relations?
Her spokesperson had to go on the record and clarify that we take responsibility for the Holocaust. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Take a look at quickly how.
Can't write that in Hollywood.
I know. Let's take a look at how the Daily Star, a very prominent Lebanese media outlet in English, took this story. Netanyahu causes uproar by linking Palestinians to Holocaust. Of course, taking more the Palestinian angle of this story. I think that's pretty much obvious. Most of the Arab media pretty much took wire stories and didn't make that big a fuss about it. Very interesting. But they did do more of the linkage to the Palestinian issue.
And the blame that Netanyahu put.
Yeah. And here, let's see a headline from a very large media outlet called Focus in Germany. This one basically says, the kicker says there, distortion of history, pretty harsh. Bizarre Netanyahu assertion, Palestinians instigated Hitler to commit the Holocaust. And then the lead sentence here is, the situation in the Middle East conflict is tense, always leads to violence. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has now further poured fuel on the fire with bizarre statements about the Holocaust.
Bizarre is a good word to be using.
Isn't it?
You know? Yeah,
it's perfect.
It's perfect. There's no, it's, you know, you don't take a kind of stance. You just say it's just bizarre.
Now, as you said, it broke the internet, right? It just totally broke the internet. I just website 972 magazine, and just full disclosure, this is a project that I contribute to as well. Collected some memes that were going around the internet. Let's just see the first one. I think the first one is my favorite. A picture of Adolf Hitler. It says, "You know what it's like. One moment you do like Jews, and then you meet a mufti and yada yada yada, Shoah."
Oh God!
Let's see some more.
I think you need to have like a warning before this item. Israelis have very dark humor about the Holocaust.
Very dark
I want to stop this amazing humorous corner. I do need to go now to the former member of Knesset, Dov Libman. Rabbi Dov Libman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
You are a resident of Bet Shemesh. We're hearing reports this morning of another violent attack in Bet Shemesh. What can you tell us?
I can tell you, both as a resident of Bet Shemesh and a volunteer member of the Border Patrol, that in the neighborhood of Ramat Bet Shemesh Gimel this morning, a young scholar was stabbed. I've already seen the picture of him. Thank God he has survived the attack. There were 2 terrorists involved. Both were shot. Both are terrorists are lying on the ground at the moment, unclear in terms of their condition. One, from what I can see, seems to be alive. The other one, I'm not sure. But thank God we prevented the attack from being any more serious. But now the terrorism has reached Beit Shemesh as well.
Absolutely, and we were just speaking earlier this morning to the Israeli police spokesperson Mickey Rosenfeld about the majority of attacks being now in Gush Etzion, even leaving parts of Jerusalem, which of course that changed last night and unclear the circumstances of last night, and now this morning in Bet Shemesh. Do you think that you'll be changing your routine, your way of life because of this morning's attack?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. Since this whole series of attacks has started, I've been a different person in terms of how I walk around and how, unfortunately, I look at people as they approach me or walk past me anywhere I walk in Israel. So it won't be any different. I think that people will continue living their lives as part of the strength of the Israeli people. I will say that the area where this happened is Ramat Bet Shemesh Gimel, where there's a lot of construction going on. I think that we need to crack down even further on the Palestinian workers that come into our area. That's something which we have to focus on. But in terms of daily life, nothing will change.
Dov Lippman, a resident of Bet Shemesh, and of course the former member of Knesset, thank you for joining us. Ami, I do want to go back to you. You're our comic relief, if there can be comic relief, in a day like this.
Like I said, Israelis had fun with it yesterday, and as Tal Shalev pointed out very well, it's very dark humor.
Extremely. I don't know if it can get darker than this in such a dark situation, but at the end it does have a good laugh. You were quoted in our
I was quoted, not one to toot my own horn, but yes, I was quoted. I don't know if we could see some more pictures coming up, I guess, of these memes. Here's one from a Palestinian. Not many people know this, but initially Eve only wanted to sniff the apple, but then during a meeting with the Mufti of Jerusalem, Haji Amin Husseini, he convinced her to take a bite out of it. A lot of these are about, how the Mufti has now convinced people to do things.
You had one about Biden.
Yeah, I had one when Biden decided to opt out of the race. He said, I said that
because the
Mufti told him not to do it. Here's like a meme with...
we need to find those Twitter statistics, how many people were using that hashtag yesterday and where they were coming from.
The Mufti made me do it. That was the hashtag.
Made me do it, yeah.
Here's a picture of sort of Hitler taking off a mask with the Mufti underneath that mask. Let's see some more I think we have. Well, this is actually a picture of, of course, a fake picture, a meme from Yad Vashem.
Yeah.
There's this avenue where they plant trees and put these plaques. And there's a plaque where Benjamin Netanyahu was putting a plaque in memorial for Adolf Hitler.
I don't know.
Very dark.
That's wow. That came from Israel.
Oh yeah, these are all Israelis. These are all Israelis.
Yeah, I mean, as Tal said, only Israelis can laugh about this as much.
This one is it's kind of funny, blaming the Mufti for breaking up the Beatles and telling Yoko Ono to. It's all his fault. It's all the Mufti's fault. Everything that was bad happened because of the Mufti.
Well, you know how much of it's going to be a trend and viral, how long it'll last. We'll see if anyone tweets today anything with because the Mufti told me to do it, or was it this like blitz of,
I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't see this thing going away too soon.
I want to go now to Dr. Ofer Ashkenazi via Skype from the History Department at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Good morning, Dr. Ashkenazi.
Good morning.
So, of course, all the Israeli media outlets, probably also international media outlets, were vying to get Holocaust experts and scholars on yesterday to finally explain once and for all what were the historical sequence of events that led to the Mufti's meeting with Hitler, and who said what, and what did Hitler, of course, as we heard from our correspondent here, Hitler's didn't want to exterminate the Jews, he just wanted to expel them. Can you put this straight for us?
Yes, I mean, just like you said before, it is a bizarre statement of the Israeli Prime Minister. Obviously, Hitler had some very good ideas of what he wanted to do with the Jews much before that, and Mufti or Al-Husseini was, in the grand scheme of things, he was a small fish.
What does it do, the impact of Netanyahu's rhetoric do for current-day anti-Semitism and current-day neo-Nazis when you look at it at a historical perspective?
Well, I cannot predict, but I can say that I think it was a calculated move of Netanyahu, who it seems cares less about the Holocaust and what really happens in the Holocaust and more about how we can use the Holocaust for Israeli politics or for his politics.
Right.
And that's one thing that we really shouldn't do. This is one of the things that we cannot joke about, even though it's pretty funny.
And although Netanyahu did use this for political means, is there any kind of dispute among historians regarding the Mufti's role in the Holocaust, or is it, this is just, as you said before, a bizarre statement of Netanyahu, and it's kind of all historians really do agree about the minor role that the Mufti had in Hitler's ideology.
Right. Well, by now we know a lot about what led to the final solution. We have a lot of details, and there is no. I mean, the only historians who come close to these kind of statements would be what we call Holocaust deniers.
Right.
Who would say, well, Hitler was not the bad guys. There were other people who were worse than him, and so forth. And that's in this tradition. But no one would say really that the Mufti convinced Hitler or even was important in Hitler's decision.
Dr. Ofer Ashkenazi from the History Department at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, thank you for joining us. Thank you for clearing that up. Unbelievable that this needs to be cleared up. You can't make this stuff up. No. Ami, take us abroad. Headlines from abroad.
Headlines from abroad. Well, of course, first of all, everybody's talking about the Biden decision yesterday. As we can see from this one from the Washington Post, Biden's decision boosts Clinton and sets up a two-way race with Sanders.
Wow.
He will not be running for president. For me, this is the epitome of the sentence: you snooze, you lose. He waited just way too long for this. Just way too long.
But he really wanted it for so long, and this was his last chance. I mean, he's not going to have another.
It's not going to happen. He's not going to run again. Never going to run again.
What about all the sweet talk for the president after he announced? That was like, okay, I'm here now, just going to make the president look perfect. Yeah. That's my job now.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep working with this guy and shaking his hand, and it was very, warm, and I don't know. You're right. That's a good point. But there was a poll that came out yesterday before, of course, the Biden decision, and about what's happening in New Hampshire, where Bernie Sanders was actually leading Hillary Clinton for a while, and now he has lost that lead, and Hillary Clinton has now solidified her lead over Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire, one of the first states to go to the polls in the primaries, leading 38-34. So she is having a really, really good week after that strong showing in the CNN debate just over a week ago.
Yeah, that kind of pumped her up because money-wise, they're pretty much the same. He has raised a lot of money, Bernie Sanders.
Well, money-wise, yeah, and of course his
and she's been criticized for raising all that money, kind of like from the same, big funders.
From the big funders, big corporations, and all of his are very small donations for many, many, many people. Probably about a difference of about $4 million, I think, about 24 to 28.
It's nothing in those days. Yeah.
But of course, she has, she's winning the endorsement poll by so much. Bernie has no endorsements whatsoever except for one congressman from Minnesota, I believe. So she pretty much has it in the bag.
Well, for now at least, Ami Kaufman, thank you for joining us. Tal Shalev, thank you. And coming up next, we're going to talk about Syria's President Bashar al-Assad, who leaves Damascus for the first time in 4 years to coordinate strategy with the Russian president. The White House has condemned what they called the red carpet welcome. All this after the headlines. Welcome back to I-24 News Morning Edition. We do want to give a few updates regarding this new stabbing attack this morning. One Israeli policeman was lightly injured in a stabbing attack this morning in Bet Shemesh. This is a community west of Jerusalem. 2 Palestinian men have been said to have been shot, and according to initial reports in Israeli media, the 2 Palestinians were attempting to enter a synagogue when they were shot, and we know that there is one person lightly wounded as of now, and of course we will be updating you throughout this broadcast. I want to move now to Moscow, where the embattled Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was in Moscow for talks with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, centered on coordinating military action in Syria, and of course to personally thank Putin for his support. It was Assad's first foreign trip since the outbreak of the Syrian crisis in 2011 and came 3 weeks after Russia launched a campaign of airstrikes against Islamist militants in Syria that has, of course, also bolstered Assad's forces. Syria's neighbor Turkey, meanwhile, has reiterated that it does desire to see Assad out of power. And the White House yesterday strongly condemned the visit, criticizing Russia for, quote, putting on a red carpet welcome. To hear more about it, we're joined in studio now by I-24 News Middle East analyst Ali Waked. Good morning.
Good morning.
Red carpet welcome, that's pretty, clarification words from the White House.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it comes after the Russian, in the last week, on the ground at least, by striking a headquarter of the Free Army, the so-called moderate rebellion in Syria. That is supported by the U.S. and the declaration of the Russians that they are not defending and protecting Assad, but they are protecting their interest in Syria. Comes this visit to send a clear message to the international community that Russia is now the address in Syria, that in order to discuss a solution to the Syrian crisis, we should pass through Moscow. And I think that this message was captured by the neighbors of Syria, mainly the Arab Gulf countries that are so worried from, on one hand, the Americans that are withdrawing from the Middle East, and on the other hand, the Russians that are playing a growing role in supporting Assad. And we are already seeing the biggest Arab country, Egypt, understand what is going on and is expressing full support to the Russian campaign in Syria. Tunisia, that also expressed its understanding to what is going on in Syria. Rumors that talk that the Arab Emirates, who is part of the coalition, the Saudi coalition in Yemen, is maybe financing even the Russian campaign against the jihadists in Syria. And it shows two things, in my opinion: that it was too early to talk that Assad came to its end, one thing. And the second thing is the growing role of Russia. And I will not be surprised, Yael, if the Russians will have a say in other conflicts in the region.
Within the Middle East. Let's take a look at this next report, which sums up Assad's visit in Moscow, and we'll take it from there.
For the first time since war broke in Syria in 2011, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was seen outside his country. On Tuesday, he made a rare, unexpected trip to Russia to discuss the ongoing war and recent Russian air intervention with President Vladimir Putin.
Syria is Russia's friend, and we are ready to make our contribution not only to the military operations in the fight against terrorism, but also to the political process. We would do this, of course, in close contact with the other global powers and with the countries in the region that want to see a peaceful settlement to this conflict.
Russia began an air campaign in Syria nearly 3 weeks ago, and the Syrian president thanked his counterpart, saying the intervention helped stop the spread of what he called terrorism in the region.
Thank you for supporting Syria's unity and independence. Most important of all is that this is being done within the framework of international law. I must say that the political steps the Russian Federation has been taking since the start of the crisis made it possible to prevent events in Syria from taking an even more tragic turn.
The Kremlin called the discussions a working visit and didn't publicize the meeting until Wednesday, when, according to the AFP news agency, Bashar al-Assad was already back in Damascus. President Putin argued that with the military basis, negotiations can follow.
On the question of a settlement in Syria, our position is that positive results in military operations will lay the base for then working out a long-term settlement based on a political process that involves all political forces, ethnic and religious groups. Ultimately, it is the Syrian people alone who must have the deciding voice here.
But Assad's involvement in negotiations and his future as Syria's president are a point of contention between Russia, Iran, Syria, and the West. Even as Putin stressed it will be up to the Syrian people, the U.S., France, and UK argue the president must be replaced as part of a long-term solution. 250,000 people have been killed in the war so far and millions displaced. And the ripple effect is now being felt in Europe as tens of thousands make their way towards what they see as a better future. Meanwhile, Assad and Syria's futures remain undecided.
So, Ali, you said before, of course, Russia is going to want a larger role in the wider Middle East. But what is Russia's end game in Syria? We heard Putin say it's going to have to, involve all the different factions in Syria. But what does Russia want to see?
We are focusing on the visit itself, Yael, but in the last month we did not pay enough attention to a process that took place. The Russian
are hosting some groups of opposition that they call the moderate opposition, the legitimate opposition in Syria. These are people that President Assad expressed in the past that he would be ready to see them part of a transition process, even part of a government in Syria, which means that the Russian, on one hand, are supporting Bashar Assad, on the other hand, are contributing to the evolution of a different opposition, different than this that is supported by Turkey and is located in Turkey, and different than the jihadist groups on the ground that are supported by some Arab countries and the United States, which means that the Russians are preparing to present a full initiative, not only based on the one-angle support of President Assad, but on developing what they call a legitimate opposition in Syria. And I think if we see in the last day the fact that Arab leaders, mainly from the Gulf, are visiting Moscow in order to discuss a solution to the Syrian crisis, it seems that everybody is now accepting, despite the public declaration, that President Assad will be at least part of a transition period. The Russians are talking that Assad should fulfill its 7 years post which he was elected, or so-called elected last year, which means that he has still 6 years to be ruling Syria. And of course, the coming days on the ground will show where things will go, because the table of negotiations will be, in my opinion, decided by the situation on the ground. And the situation on the ground right now is, despite of all the talks about coordinating America and Russia coordinating, there is one truth, and the truth is that the Russians are bombarding, are striking the factions that are supported by the United States. Convoys of weapons that reach the rebels are targeted a couple of days after by the Russians, and the Russians are making it clear there is no difference between the different groups on the ground. Every opposition that use arms is targeted by the Russians.
So absolute boost of confidence for the Syrian president as of now. Ali Waqid, thank you for joining us. And we're going to stay in the region broadly, and we want to pose this issue. Has the Islamic State committed genocide against the Yazidi minority in Iraq? The UN has said probably. A research group that once documented Nazi war crimes is currently now investigating massacres against the Kurdish-speaking Yazidis, and whether those actions do indeed amount to genocide. The label, of course, itself comes with repercussions, as we've seen in the debate surrounding the Armenian genocide. And this new investigation by the Nazi crime researchers may open up a new controversy. To find out more, we're going to take a look at this next report by I-24 News journalist Maya Margit.
They have been kidnapped, tortured, raped and killed in the thousands. And now a group of Nazi researchers is investigating whether the massacres committed by the Islamic State group against Iraq's Yazidi minority constitutes genocide. The team is looking to prove that IS's goal is to systematically wipe out the Yazidis, who are considered by the radical Islamist group to be heretical. After jihadists took over Sinjar last year, where the Kurdish-speaking minority is based, witnesses said they separated the men from the women.
They started to divide women amongst themselves, with each emir, whose job is to kill and cut off heads, taking 4 women. The emir has the right to sell, buy or exchange women with his friends when he feels bored with them. They took girls as young as 9 and 11 years old. I saw a 55-year-old governor taking a 9-year-old girl. And when I told them that such a thing is prohibited by all the religions, even that of Prophet Muhammad, I was told that their religion permitted them to do that.
The small European team from Yazidis Massacred, an association that collected evidence of Nazi slaughter of Jews in Eastern Europe, has traveled to a Kurdish refugee camp in Iraq to gather witness testimony for its case. And their research is not the first of its kind to look into whether IS's actions amount to genocide. Earlier this year, the United Nations warned that the group is involved in ethnic cleansing.
On attacks against the Yazidi in particular, we found that there was a manifest pattern of killing that was caused serious bodily and mental harm, and also involved the forced transfer of children. These attacks were aimed at destroying the Yazidi as a group, and this is why we say that genocide may have been perpetrated by ISIL.
Estimates say there are over 500,000 Yazidis in Iraq, many of whom have been captured by IS and forced into sex slavery. Along with the UN's earlier report on the matter, the Nazi researchers could back up the claim of genocide and, in turn, help build a case for future legal proceedings.
With me in studio is PhD candidate, Department of Middle Eastern African University, African History at Tel Aviv University, Idan Barir. Thank you for joining us. So, of course, the label of genocide has repercussions also historically and also emotionally for many people. We saw it with Armenian genocide. In your view, someone who has been researching the Yazidi people, this is genocide.
Well, as it seems, from the beginning, IS, the Islamic State, has devised a plan to wipe off the Yazidis. They announced it well in advance, a month or two before they moved into Sinjar, took over Sinjar. And they had their intentions were absolutely clear. They did say it. We want to kill all Yazidis because of their differences in religious differences, ethnic differences, and so on and so forth. They were very clear and blunt about wanting to wipe off the Yazidis. So it's hard for me to understand why is it taking so long to just accept what the Islamic State has wanted and pre-announced. The funny thing was that it was left altogether for the Yazidis to come up with a plan how to make the international community acknowledge the genocide, or what may have been a genocide, as was just said. It was just one team of Yazidis led by Yazda, one of the Yazidi NGOs, that worked on this issue have been working on this issue for quite a while. And only in the last month or two, these European groups and groups related to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, have stepped in and took over some responsibilities in researching this particular issue.
So I want to go to New York actually via Skype to the Catholic priest, the president of Yahad in Unum, the director of the Episcopal Committee for Catholic Judeo Relations, Father Patrick Dubois. Thank you for joining us, Father.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit how you investigated or how you set about to investigate whether this constitutes genocide?
We were not only concentrated on that question. What we wanted to study was what was really the processes day by day. So first we saw that we interviewed more than 50 people. We crisscrossed with our archive and we re-interview new people. We have chosen to interview people who just escaped, so less than 20 days. What we saw is the processes was not only about the girl, but it begins by a separation. When they arrest them, they have to be converted to Islam quickly or they will die. So they cannot stay Yazidi. And the second step is to separate the category. The babies disappear. We still not know where they are gone. All the babies, the newborn, disappear. The young boys are brought in camps, in training camps. The young girls, first they bring doctors to check they are virgin when they are arrested at the moment of the arrestation. And all these girls are brought in a separate way. After all the women who are married, or the grandmother, they keep them for different reasons. Sometimes to be servant, sometimes to protect from bombing from planes. And the men are shot normally. All the men are shot, and sometimes it comes also a doctor to check if the boy is already a man or not. So we saw, after we followed the processes for the boy, processes for the girls, processes for the married women, and we tried to identify the processes of, I would say, extermination of the Yazidi people.
Father Dubois, thank you for joining us in New York. Idan, I just want to quickly wrap up with you. Genocide or no, is there a political capital or political price to pay that the international community doesn't want to call it genocide? Is there political strings being pulled?
It's hard to say, but I mean, the international community is declaring, at least, that it is against IS, against the Islamic State. Declaring what happened as genocide may give some additional tools for the international community to fight IS, even though the Islamic State does not recognize international institutions. It will perhaps give some other tools, some effective or ineffective tools we will see in the future, I guess.
And unfortunately, and I'm saying this as media myself, only disasters really bring back the plight of the Yazidis back to the headlines. Idan Barir, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Coming up next we're going to take an underwater journey to see the wreck of a World War II submarine. But first, we're going to hear some more of this morning's headlines. Welcome back. It's still Thursday, October 22nd, 2015. This is still the morning edition on I-24 News. Thank you for staying with us. We want to still update you with this morning's attack in Bet Shemesh community outside of Jerusalem, where an 18-year-old yeshiva student was moderately wounded early this morning in a stabbing attack at a bus stop. I want to go now live to Mirav Servier, I-24 News correspondent. You're in Gush Etzion this morning, of course, the site of many attacks in the past few days. First attack now in Bet Shemesh.
Yes, Yael, as you said, first attack in Bet Shemesh, just a few kilometers from where we are in Gush Etzion, outside of Jerusalem. As you said, one Israeli moderately injured. He was taken to the hospital where he is being treated. Now, what had happened is that two assailants tried to get on the bus. They stabbed the men off the bus. A security officer noticed them and shot at the assailants. We don't know. We're also hearing that they are seriously wounded and not shot and killed. We'll update you on their condition throughout the day as well. The area was cordoned off earlier this morning. Now security is heightened as they look and search throughout the area, and they were saying they were searching the two men for IDs to find out who they are and where they are from. As for the area where we are at the moment, as you said, the ground zero for several different attacks over the past couple of days, 10 in 3 days to be exact. Yesterday evening, 5 soldiers injured here, 2 of them moderately, 3 of them lightly, after stones were thrown at their vehicles. They exited the vehicles and somebody took the opportunity, hitting them with their vehicle. And those 2 attacks were separate. There were several who threw stones, and then somebody seizing the opportunity and using it for an attack of their own once they exited the vehicles. So Gush Etzion, this area over the past couple of days, very, very sensitive area. Not only is it Jewish, but Palestinians living here as well, which is why we're also hearing a lot of the areas where stone throwing at cars and civilians takes place over the last couple of days.
Mirav Servier, I-24 News correspondent, thank you for joining us. We're going to take a break from everything that's happening around us, and we're going to go underwater because our next guest has the enviable job of spending his days under the waves working as an underwater cameraman. We're joined in studio by Amir Weitzman, the founder of Aquazoom, a video shooting and marketing company specializing in extreme sports. Amir, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, guys.
So we're just talking now during the break. You're underwater when all this is happening.
Yes, I was on a boat, under the water, inside the water, shooting the 47 Olympic sailing boats.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. But you're here to tell us about a World War II defense system that was discovered near Haifa.
Well, we're going to talk about the Shirei. The Shirei is an Italian submarine from World War II, sank in Haifa Bay in 10 of August 1942. After she came from Alexandria and made a major damage to the English warship, she came to Haifa, but because the English had the Enigma machine that can capture a message from Germany, they understand that the Shirei will come to Haifa. They put an ambush, a fishing boat by the name of Aisley with fishermen, saw the Shirei coming up, rising from the water, and sank her. The Shirei sank with all the 53 mariners inside, and they're still inside, some of them, the bones still inside, and it became a very popular diving site.
No, that's a hard sentence to digest, literally. Oh, that was a bad pun.
What was special on the Shirei had 3 mayale.
Right.
Mayale, it's in English, it's pig. It's an underwater vehicle that carry a commander unit, and you can see the boat, the submarine, 4.5 meter wide, 53 meter, the longest from one side to another.
So after it sank, it took quite a lot of years for the Italian government to realize that they had fallen soldiers there.
Everybody knew that they were there, but nobody was commercially diving over there. In the beginning of 82 and 82, people sport diving over there, and the Italian government wanted the Israeli Navy to seal it. So they sealed it, and everything is still inside. Some of the bones and memories took to Italian to make a memorial site.
Right.
And people still diving there. We're going every Saturday from Putzker Diving Club in Nariya to dive over there. It's a wonderful site.
So we learn a lot of history actually from this sunken ship. But in terms of diving, it's pretty deep.
No, it's a 30-meter.
Depending who you're asking, 30 meters is
30
pretty big for me. Yeah.
It's for every sport divers with 2 stars. It's
Right.
a very calm dive, nothing special. Usually they have dolphins over there coming to see the divers. I didn't see them yet,
right.
but...
Or the remnants of what happened there in the submarine, looking for documents as well. These are stunning pictures. Have you found more and more artifacts, or everything's pretty much closed
No, everything
down?
is closed. Everything is still inside. People stole a lot of things from inside. And the majority of important things flew to Italy already.
And this, of course, is quite a treat for Israelis divers, because it's right off the coast of Haifa.
Yeah, it's very close to Haifa, but you have to go from Nahariya, because in Haifa we don't have a diving center.
Very nice.
Which is very interesting.
It's a beautiful dive. It's a beautiful day. So every Saturday you go? How many times have you seen a dolphin there?
I didn't see the dolphin yet.
No, you can't sell us dolphins if you
But people saw them.
So can you actually go inside the submarine, or because you don't see pictures here that you're inside?
No, now the submarine is sealed.
It's
but
sealed.
Before, in 82, you can go inside. People used to go inside. I knew that the Israeli Navy was practicing inside the submarine, but now everything is closed. You're not allowed to go. They put a very nice plate, memorial plate, with the name of the submarine and the name of the mariners. And I think every 6 years, the grandsons of the mariners came and make a memorial ceremony under the water and on the surface of the water.
On the surface as well. I want to go to another diving site, the Nitzan, a fishing boat that was also used for spying.
Okay, in Israel, everything connected to spying.
I try, I need to keep it. I need to keep it relevant to what's going on today.
Okay, the Nitzan is a fishing boat. It was a fishing boat gave to Israel by the payment from the German after the Holocaust.
Yeah.
2 kibbutz from Israel got the ship, but the ship was too big for the Mediterranean to fish in it. So in the early 70s, the boat went to Ethiopia to fish in Ethiopia, to start to fish in deeper water in the Red Sea. And the Israeli Navy and the Israeli Mossad was working on the Nitzan. They was using it for a spying boat. And in the early, I think 6 years ago, Israel Diving Federation and Putzker Diving Club bought the ship instead of making a raising knife or something like that in Indonesia.
Right.
And they sank close to Nahariya coast, and it became a very popular diving site. The only site in the Mediterranean in Israel that you can go inside, you can dive inside, and you can go under and inside all the rooms. You can
not simply just dive around and swim around.
Yes.
Stunning. Well, Amir, thank you for joining us. Beautiful pictures, as usual.
Thank you.
Ami Kaufman is here for today again for the viral spiral that is the web. I don't think there's anything more viral than what we've been talking about up until now.
No, I'm not going to top that. Sorry.
Okay. So try.
Okay, I'm going to try. Well, yesterday it might have been a battle, because yesterday was Back to the Future Day, as you remember.
Right.
The 21st of October, everybody was talking about that. That was pretty much ruling the web. And there was a headline that came out yesterday that I thought was really, really great, that some of the people who wrote Back to the Future said. And look at this headline that we have from the Esquire. Biff, the villain in Back to the Future, was based on Donald Trump.
Amazing.
For some reason, that actually isn't surprising.
No, and it looks exactly
exactly like with the hair, the hair kind of weird comb over there. This was
and the scrunching up of the nose of
an interview with Bob Gale. Bob Gale was one of the writers with Bob Zemeckis, I think it was the other writer. And Bob Gale said, "We thought about it when we made the movie. Are you kidding? You watch part 2 again, and there's a scene where Marty confronts Biff in his office, and there's a huge portrait of Biff on the wall behind Biff. And there's one moment where Biff kind of stands up and he takes exactly the same pose as the portrait. That's just typical Donald Trump-esque kind of...
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's making the 80s cool again through politicians. That's what they're doing.
Totally. This was a headline that was really, really viral yesterday. Remember Clock Kid Ahmed Muhammad, the kid from Irving, Texas, who was arrested at his school for bringing a homemade clock that he made. Let's see this headline from BuzzFeed. He is taking his family and moving to Qatar. By Texas after accepting a scholarship. First of all, by the way, this is coming one day after he was at the White House.
I saw
and
that.
he met President Obama. He shook hands with President Obama.
They were stargazing together.
They were.
Yeah, it was a stargazing
Well, it was a whole like
event.
astronomy kind of event. There were a lot of
Right.
people. It wasn't just just for Ahmed, even though President Obama did give him like an official invitation to come to the White House. But yeah, they shook hands and they stargazed, and so here a day after, I guess he didn't tell Obama that he was going to leave the country so quickly. But yes, he's going to Qatar. He's gotten a scholarship from the Qatar Foundation for Education, and it's going to put him through all of his high school. He's only 14.
Wow.
So he's taking,
So he's taking his
he
whole
and his
family.
family is going to Qatar to study.
Nice.
So
Well,
good for him. He's going places, that
trading
kid.
the deep south for the Middle East.
Yes.
Not many that are doing that today, so it's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another one from BuzzFeed. Disney released like a new DVD collection of Aladdin. It's called the Diamond Edition.
Wow.
And part of this was they put these on the like an extra feature, these outtakes, that didn't go into the movie, of Robin Williams.
Was phenomenal there.
Was phenomenal, and some of these things that didn't go in were actually really, really good. And we have a video. We'll just listen to a few seconds of
Yay.
it, hearing him, hearing his voice.
So tell me, when your life passed in front of your eyes, did you go, I'm not that interesting?
Thanks, Genie.
Oh, Al, I'm getting kind of fond of you, kid. I would have done mouth to mouth, but I don't find you that attractive.
You know, Al, I'm getting really... I don't think you're him.
Haven't I seen your picture in the post office side view? You seem to have been separated from your group. I'm sorry, the evil group has moved on. This is really a bummer, man. I don't know what's going on here, man.
Gems.
I miss this guy. It's really,
I miss
it's
this
sad
guy.
to hear
I love
his
this
voice.
movie. He made that movie,
Yeah. It just, I think it's just over a year.
Yeah.
We just had the anniversary, I think, of a month or two ago that he passed away. It's really, emotional to hear his voice again.
Absolutely. And he's so funny all the time.
Yeah. He's a genius. What can I say? Elle magazine, the UK Elle, is out on a campaign. Well, yeah, read all that. I have a subscription. What are you talking about? Have a campaign, #MoreWomen. And what they do is they're trying to promote more women, have more women in politics. What they did is they took a lot of famous photos where you show women in some of these photos, like this one where Merkel is, and then they photoshopped the men out to see how few basically there are. Let's just see a few of these pictures that are coming. That's one.
It doesn't look so, authoritative anymore.
Yeah, let's see some more of these.
Authoritative.
There's wonder how many you're going to see in the next one after this one.
Some holes. Oh.
Just,
wow.
It's pretty crazy.
Crazy.
Nobody. There's a famous shot in the White House.
Situation.
Situation room, and there it is, just Hillary. That's all you got.
Making all the decisions by herself.
I wonder if she will be president. By the way, here it is in London Parliament. See what happens when they take all the men out.
Oh wow!
Isn't that amazing?
Wow! Look at that.
Yeah. They're saying that their statement in the cover of the magazine, the story of how women in positions of strength continually support and empower each other is consistently ignored, while the myth that we pit ourselves against each other perpetuates. We want to change this narrative in our feminism issue and create a more positive conversation to reflect the power of women and to support and grow each other as we push for global equality.
Yeah, and the biggest argument always is, look at this woman, she's head of this and head of that, but she's one, and
just
you see
one
that in those pictures.
It's the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a
It
shame.
doesn't really do much. You need mass.
Right. Maybe things will change with Hillary, right? Well, we'll
or with
see.
Elle magazine.
Adele has confirmed that she is putting out a new album on Facebook. She went on a post on Facebook, and she said that she will release shortly. Her new album is going to be called 25.
Right.
As the early one was called 21.
21.
Mm-hmm. She's already 27, by the way. She's not 25.
She's lying.
It's about what happened, I guess, when she's 25. She put out a long post. I just read the end of it. She says, 25 is about getting to know who I've become without realizing, and I'm sorry it took so long, but life happened.
Yeah.
So that was the Facebook post. And this was, by the way, after a teaser that she put on the British X Factor, where she put like 30 seconds. They put 30 seconds with a black screen of just her music. Nobody knew what it was, but they recognized the voice and say, is this Adele's new song? And the internet went totally crazy about it. So yes. Song,
so it's the new mature 27-year-old 27-year-old Adele.
Yeah, coming out with a new one.
She's 25. She's a mom now, so.
Yeah. We have some more time?
Yep.
I hope so. Amazon is taking legal action against 1,114 fake reviewers. These are the people that go online and put these fake reviews, try to pump up their reviews and make products that they're trying to sell better than they really are. So Amazon is taking some legal action against these people, 1,114 people. This is good because I use Amazon and I base a lot of my purchases on reviews and what people are saying. I think a lot of people do that.
Of course.
So
I love reading the reviews. I'm glad that they're going to be the real ones now.
Trying to be a little deterrence there, I think is what it's called.
Who are those people that sit and write reviews all day? Ami, thank you for joining us. You want to say just headline?
Quickly, Oprah Winfrey has bought a stake in Weight Watchers. 10% of Weight Watchers, which made the stocks double in price. It boomed.
Wow.
So yeah,
she's not a thing of the past. Oprah's there.
She's a person who's been battling, with weight issues for her whole life, and she's
a big proponent of Weight Watchers, of course. Itself. Ami, thank you very much. Next up are the headlines, and of course, we'll be back. Welcome back to I-24 News Morning Edition. We're taking a nice, respected break from what's happening in our region, and we're going to go speak now with our environmental journalist, Netta Chitoub. Hi, Netta.
Good morning.
And I want to say good morning to Amit Kling, Time Out cultural editor.
I know.
Netta, what are you starting with?
So, I love this story. It has literature in it, globalization, court, law, environment, everything that you want. Eri De Luca, the famous Italian author that, everybody likes to like, has just been cleared from an Italian court of saying something that could incite sabotaging a bridge that is being built. Actually, it's a tunnel that is being built in the Alps. He said in an interview in The Guardian 5 years ago that this tunnel should be sabotaged because it's really hurting the environment. The environmentalists are afraid that digging the tunnel will really ruin all the nature there. And then he was, they took him to court for saying it, and they said that he's famous and he could influence many people, and it's really not a thing that he should have said. And beginning of the week, he has been cleared. And as you could see, there are celebrations, and everybody's very happy. And it's, it's a point of freedom of speech versus being famous and how you can influence people.
But I think even the actual case itself probably did much more for the cause than
here we are talking about this tunnel in the Alps. And we would probably never talk about it.
Anyway, right. And especially even if he had written, you should sabotage it or whatever he wrote, it doesn't do the publicity that a nice court trial does. And he was innocent. So.
Yeah. So in Turin, everybody is celebrating, and Eri De Luca is happy. He's quite old by now, and he could have gotten 5 years in jail. So
and he said that he would have accepted it as well.
Yeah. He was very open to everything that would happen. And let's see what's going on in Morocco and how small people could do a really big change.
2,000 tons of solid waste arrive each day at this landfill south of Rabat. Rubbish collectors like these roam the streets day and night with their trash carts. But a project launched in 2011 has hired some of these informal trash pickers, helping turn their life around.
We're much better off since we've come here. We got rid of having to work under the sun or rain. We have social security and our earnings help us support our families.
Informal rubbish collectors are still looked down upon in Morocco, with some viewing them as trash thieves. But at this cooperative, they all have a fixed salary of around €230 per month, and they take part in waste recycling too. The project was set up as an environmental initiative in a country where household waste causes up to 18% of greenhouse gas emissions. The company that operates the landfill has invested €650,000 in the small cooperative and say the workers are their priority.
Ces 150 personnes maintenant se sont constituées en coopérative.
These 150 people have formed a cooperative,
and so earn their living in an honest way. They've regained their dignity, and now they're making their own business, and I think they're very well organised. Ultimately, we wanted to allow 150 families the chance to carry on living.
Morocco has pledged to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 13% by 2020. An ambitious goal which requires support for this type of cooperative and the gradual destruction of 220 unauthorized landfills that still exist in the country.
وضعنا واحد الشراكة مع الجامعات المحلية وضعنا يعني 16 لحد الآن مولنا يعني 16 المركز.
We've established a partnership with local authorities. To date, we've funded 16 of the existing 19 sorting and waste recycling centres. The programme takes time. 6 new sorting centres are being built, increasing to 70 centres by 2020.
البرنامج طويل باش يكون مثلا فيه وحدين اخرين اللي غادي يوصلوا في اخر المطاف 2020 الى 70 وحده.
But with the lack of legislation on recycling, it seems it's these trash pickers who will lead the ecological transformation of Morocco, giving value back to waste.
So, informal trash collectors on the streets. I mean,
what?
You need to care about the environment. It's not, the whole show is not about you.
That is not true.
But we'll get to you in just a second. Someone who's just a tad bit cooler than you is President Obama.
Yes, let's talk about Obama.
you got to give the first place to somebody.
Yeah. Anyway, President Obama is doing much to go forward with the environment, and he's doing this. This is ridiculous.
What? How am I the bad guy here?
You can't trash the environment.
I did
no
nothing.
pun intended.
I did nothing.
President Obama has put the environment as part of something that is super important on his agenda, and to do that, he's enlisting.
Once again, she's guilty now. As usual, I'm just sitting here and being singled out for crimes I have nothing to do with. Much like Ari DeLuca.
Let's hear him maybe,
let's take a listen.
If we are at the forefront of this, if we are the innovators, if we are the early adapters, if we are the example setters, then we're the ones who are going to be creating and selling the products and services that help the entire world adapt to a clean energy future. We need to have a partnership between business and the federal government, state government, local government, non-for-profit sector, all to continue to achieve aggressive reductions in our carbon footprint here in the United States as America as a leader.
See, this is what I love about President Obama. Really, the thing is that he takes an issue that nobody wants to deal with, and he takes in,
I'm sorry, can we talk about that lady's crazy yellow butterfly jacket? That was insane.
What?
She's the CEO of one of the big titans, Intel, if I'm not mistaken.
I think when you're a CEO of a titan, you can definitely wear whatever you want. And just
definitely.
I'm boss. I don't care.
No, but to take these big corporates and enlist them to, double down against the fight against climate change, that's a pretty smart strategy.
Yeah.
He's no longer labeled as a left-wing. He's bringing in the big corporates.
Obama is going with all force to fight climate change, and what we see here is a meeting with 81 of the titans of the American economy, who he's recruiting to help him with his Obama plan to actually change something and reduce emissions. He's really going full force with it. They say that this will be his legacy, even more than the Obamacare, the famous Obamacare.
Right, because that's controversial. It is controversial, but at least he's bringing in all the sides.
And he's charming and he's charismatic, so he can really, bring many people alongside with him, and this is what he's doing with the business sector. It's quite impressive, and really, the United States is leading a change prior to the December meeting that will be held in Paris, where all the nations of the world will be taking part.
Right. Yes. And he's holding them accountable. If they don't deliver, there's someone to blame. It's no longer a government thing. It's also businesses are absolutely to blame, and they'll be held accountable.
Yes.
Netta, we're gonna blame Amit for what he's been doing to us all broadcast.
I have done nothing.
This time in history, Amit Kling, what happened?
This time? What's this time?
In a year, we're going to look back at this show and we'll be today on October 22nd, 2015. Amit Kling made us lose it on air.
I deny these allegations.
Take us to 1933.
Yeah, let's talk about some people who are truly guilty of stuff. Those are Ronald and Reggie Cray, the Cray twins, iconic British gangsters. That's their birthday, October 20. The Cray twins, they are interesting characters. Now, recently there's been a movie released about them called Legend with Tom Hardy in a double role. We can take a look at it right now, actually.
London in the 1960s. Everyone had a story about the Crays. They were twins.
Do you think we look alike?
Reggie was a gangster prince of the East End. Ron Cray was a one-man mob.
Your brother is violent, paranoid schizophrenic.
London in the 1960s.
I've seen this trailer. It's really violent.
Yes.
Like the trailer itself is very scary.
Restricted. It has
but I was quite amazed. How could they?
Well, I think it's a good representation of the movie, which I haven't seen, but I did hear good things about it. But the Cray twins, they started out as boxers, mid 50s, and they were petty criminals who eventually started to build a career for themselves in the East End, and because two things helped their celebrity status, and there were actual celebrities in London in the 60s and the 70s. They would mingle with, more regular celebrities. They would get write-ups in tabloids. And the reason for that is, A, they owned nightclubs, so they mix with all that elite. And their very glamorous gangster lifestyle. It's interesting that the United States as a culture was obsessed with gangsters in the 30s, in the Depression, as a sort of kind of an anti-government motion, but the British, they were obsessed with gangsters in the 70s as more of a counterculture movement.
So they're considered, even the movie, they're portrayed now as celebrities, and nobody's looking at their criminal
of course it's not shown as something. It's celebrated and criticized at the same time, but it's undeniable sort of criminal glam to it. And the Cray twins have been featured in songs by Morrissey, who of course is always fascinated with these kind of characters.
Right.
And they're to this day, I think the British people, they love an interesting criminal like Charles Bronson, who was also portrayed by Tom Hardy. I don't know.
He knows his criminality.
And the aesthetics of this film is absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
The 30s were a cool period for style.
They were born then. They wear mostly diapers, but these are the 60s.
But I'm talking about the 30s were cooler.
They were.
Well. Anyway, Guggenheim Museum opens up this week in 1959.
That's true. Are you going to do all my lines for me?
Yeah. Well,
Are you getting back at me?
I am.
I am.
I need to do something to redeem myself today. Yeah.
Okay. Really, not all that. First of all, this is the building. The museum itself exists as an organization, what do you call it?
Right.
Since 1939. But that's when it opened, this insane cylindrical building, which is sort of a landmark in how museums were built since. As irregular buildings, as the building itself sort of...
As part of the art.
Yes,
absolutely, yeah. It's a beautiful museum.
It is.
Absolutely beautiful.
And it's a new way to see exhibitions.
Yes.
Actually, they actually invented the ramp thing, and then everybody copied it all over the world.
Very effective it is. It's the sort of same logic. The ramp logic was also used much later in shopping centers, so that you would see the whole thing and buy much more, of course. October 22nd, 1964, Jean-Paul Sartre refused the Nobel Prize in Literature.
After he won it.
Yes, of course. Otherwise, there would be nothing to refuse. I have also recently refused.
There's people that have openly said they don't want
I am not going. By the way, I don't think you can refuse the Nobel Prize without winning it, because you don't enter yourself, or you're never formally entered. There's a committee, so I don't think it's technically possible. Unlike other literature prizes, such as the Man Booker.
Remind us why the French philosopher decided to refuse
Sartre,
this?
by the way, it may be the one of two people who ever refused the Nobel Prize in Literature. The other is Boris Pasternak, who refused it for, communist bloc reasons. He obviously could not accept a prize from Sweden, and he was forced by the government to do so. But Sartre, he had actual reasons. In 1945, he refused the French Medal of Honor after the war, despite, as he said, he was sympathetic to the French government at that point. But he just did not want to be associated with any prize that came from a government. And he said, that is his principle, and he felt it undermined his literary position. He did not want to sign Jean-Paul Sartre, Nobel Prize winner, just Jean-Paul Sartre. Right.
Well, as in all kind of publicity stunts, and I'm not blaming that it was a publicity stunt, it made him who he was. He's the man that won and refused.
There is still, to this day, a prize called the Sartre Prize, which is a literature prize given to people who have refused literature prizes for political reasons.
Very nice.
It is.
Roseanne.
Not yet. Sorry. October 20, October 20, 1977 is the day of the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash that killed 3 of the band members. Those were Ronnie Van Zant, the singer, guitarist Steve Gaines, and backup vocalist Cassie Gaines, his sister, and also some band crew members. That was a huge. It still is a huge band, but in the 70s they were at the peak of their popularity. And the plane crash had effectively ended the band for 10 years. They have reformed in 1987 with Johnny Van Zant, Ronnie's brother, on vocals. And it's an interesting band, I think.
Oh. Tragedy hits.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's an interesting band in the sense of their stances they are often associated with.
And quickly, Roseanne did debut as a trailer, the sitcom, which later made the 90s.
Made John Goodman, October 18, 1988.
Right. Fun days. Good sitcom. Amit Kling, thank you for joining us. Netta Chituv, thank you. That's all for now. Yeah, you'll apologize. You'll apologize. Next up are the headlines. Thanks for joining.